Blessings, beloveds. Welcome back, Anastasia, Cosmic Astrologer. Let's talk about the full moon in Scorpio, which is coming up in around about 3 days' time. Quite a few things to unpack. I pulled up this card. Just before I started, I asked for a card that would give us extra meaning to the full moon. Not that we really need it with all the astrological. Just let the emergencies go by. It always happens every time I start. Sense of urgency, which is very interesting because this full moon is ruled by both Mars and Pluto, right? And Mars is, of course, always about urgency or emergency. So anyway, this is a card that came up, which is very interesting. So it's the Four of Pentacles. This card is all about security, safety, and money as well, and one's plans and actions and structures around that. Now that is a very interesting card to come up because the Sun is in Taurus at the moment, Venus is in Taurus, Mercury is in Taurus, Black Moon Lilith is in Taurus. There's a lot of Taurus energy, which is all about safety, survival, security, values, money, insecurity, stabilizing, building, attachment. And the full moon in Scorpio, very interesting because Taurus and Scorpio, which obviously are opposite each other, that's how a full moon develops into a full moon. It's always the sun-moon opposition in the heavens. And so here we have two fixed signs, okay? There are fixed signs, there are mutable, there are cardinal, and so forth. And these two signs, Taurus and Scorpio, which is the polarity we are working with relative to this full moon, are both fixed in nature. The element of fixed is important to understand because when it comes to fixed, it fosters the ability to stand with things, to persist, right? To persevere and to not give up on things. Taurus is the most fixed of all the signs. It's the most, you cannot get a more fixed sign than Taurus. And that has, of course, its advantages, but it has its disadvantages as well, because it's the sign out of all in the zodiac that struggles to let go of attachment the most. That's just the nature of Taurus. It's the second sign of the zodiac in the wheel. It's the next sign after Aries. Aries is the first one, which is the spark, the initiation, the emergence of life itself. And Taurus is the energy that, amongst many, many other things, it's the energy that coming after Aries points to how do we stabilize and actualize that spark of life into this material domain, this material reality. So we're dealing with Scorpio Taurus, which is attachment on the one hand, Taurus, and Scorpio on the other hand is about purging oneself of perhaps what we are attached to or have been attached to. Now, it is also very, very important, first of all, where is this full moon in Scorpio in your birth chart? What house does it fall in your actual birth chart? And does it have any conjunctions or oppositions? We can include other aspects as well. I'm not saying to not do that. That's entirely up to you. But just to keep it very simple for this particular video, let's just say, is the full moon forming a conjunction to one of your planets, or is it forming an opposition to one of your planets in your natal chart? And if it is, that's going to be very important. Oh boy. Okay, we'll just wait. The full moon always, obviously, it illuminates, okay? It highlights whatever is present, whatever is showing up, or whatever has been developing or has been hidden, even for that matter. And now the full moon comes along and puts a spotlight on it. And so to get an even more clearer picture of that for yourself, it's important to go back to where did this cycle of the moon begin, and it began in Aries. As we know, I did a video a couple of weeks ago of the new moon in Aries, which was a very, very powerful new moon for a lot of reasons. And as I said in that video, that new moon cycle really does speak to the next 12 months. It's the first new moon after the new year, as in the astrological new year, which is on the 20th or 21st of March. And so that was the first new moon, right, in that that level of looking at things relative to the new year really beginning at 0 degrees of Aries, right, which is the tropical zodiac. That's what we're working with here. So even though there will be things that will be highlighted at the moment from this full moon, which began at the new moon a couple of weeks ago in Aries, it's still a process. It's really going to unfold, over many months. The interesting thing, of course, with this full moon is that it's ruled by Mars and Pluto, and the new moon that we had 2 weeks ago was also ruled by Mars. So the archetypes or the zodiac signs Scorpio and Aries are both ruled by Mars, okay? And Scorpio is also ruled by Pluto. So we have from the time of the new moon, which was a couple of weeks ago, it's quite an intense energy, to step into a new moon in Aries, which is very exciting, very dynamic, and promotes a lot of activity, energy, fiery sort of, outlets or fiery desires, the enthusiasm and excitement to rush into certain things and start certain projects, to give birth to new things and so forth. But Mars itself is quite a pushy sort of energy. So we're dealing with Mars. We're not, in other words, since the new moon started this cycle off 2 weeks ago, we are dealing with Mars-Pluto energies. That's an important note to consider, okay, relative to this cycle of the moon. Mars, Scorpio, Aries energies are very, very intense, strong energies. They're not soft, they're not subtle. In other words, that they're not Venus, it's Mars. Mars is it's action, it's aggression, okay? It's a lot of different things, but it's very dynamic, it's very active. So this full moon carries that vibration with it. Now, what I want to do actually is share my screen and bring up the chart, because this will help the visual components of things. Okay, so this is the full moon chart for Melbourne, Melbourne time, Australia. Obviously, for you guys in the Northern Hemisphere, it's on the 26th of April. So again, don't worry about the location of where everything is. This chart is based on Melbourne. If you wanted to look at the full moon chart for your location, then you would draw up the full moon chart for your location. If you wanted to look at what this full moon chart points relative to your actual living location, but that's another level, because then you're kind of looking at what's happening in your town, in your city, as it were, relative to the full moon. But if you're wanting to look at what is this full moon highlighting for you in your own chart, then all you need to do is locate 7 degrees of Scorpio. Where is 7 degrees of Scorpio for you in your chart? Now, I find that the full moon in Scorpio is, just to state the obvious, is one of the most intense full moons, and it really is. I personally feel the lunation cycle very strongly, very strongly. My moon is in the first house for me, so I have a very high degree of sensitivity to the lunation cycle, and I pretty much know what sign it's going to be in, and just when it's about to shift into the next sign without even looking at my charts. I just instinctively, intuitively know, and the first house corresponds to our instincts, right? So in other words, what I'm trying to say is that for those of you that are really in touch with the lunar cycle and work with the lunar cycle, and or have a moon that's quite sensitive, let's say, that's quite plugged in and tuned into the rhythms of the body, the emotional states, the feelings, just the daily kind of rhythms, okay? Because the moon corresponds to literally our daily rhythms. You know, when you want to eat, it's the moon that lets you know that your body is hungry. When you are tired, it's the moon that lets you know that you need to rest, okay? So the moon corresponds to all these internal systems that regulate our sleep cycles, our eating cycles, and so forth. And so people who have a really well, every moon is important in a person's chart, and every position of the moon is significant, and so forth. That's not what I'm addressing. What I'm addressing is if your moon is at a highly sensitized point, you probably are more in tune, let's say. You know, you feel the rhythms of the moon a lot more than perhaps some others might. I certainly do. Okay, that's why I'm, just sharing that bit of information. So, as I said, we're dealing with the Scorpio Taurus polarity. Now, there's the moon over here. Let me just get some drawing tools. What do I want to grab? Yeah, that'll do. So, here is the full moon. I'm just going to draw a line. I can't see where the sun is because there are bars hiding the top part of my chart. Anyway, it's up there somewhere, isn't it? I don't know how that line looks very crooked to me. Anyway, we know that the sun is at 7 of Taurus and the moon is at 7 of Scorpio. What I'm going to do is get rid of that because this bar is really annoying. Okay, I've managed to move it. Perfect. Let me see if I can get my drawing tools back. All right, so sorry, I meant to do that. That looks awfully messy. Okay, anyway, point is full moon in Scorpio, sun in Taurus, and I have squiggled over some things, but never mind those things I've squiggled over because we won't be addressing them. But what we do need to address here is that the ruler of the sun is Venus, okay, because Venus rules Taurus. Now, this is also a very important point because Venus is actually conjunct the sun. It's a very wide conjunction, but in evolutionary terms, it's not wide at all. That's a Sun-Venus conjunction, okay, in terms of the orbs that are allowed in evolutionary terms, and I do use those types of orbs in my readings. And also we have Venus conjunct Uranus. So that was a conjunction that really started, quite a few days ago now. That's still in play though in this full moon chart. So we have this very traditional energy. Taurus is a very traditional sign, okay? And it corresponds to survival, values, self-worth. There's a lot of issues that are being addressed and brought up relative to our own self-worth, okay? And with Uranus there, we are really being asked to actually let go of the old attachments that we've had about ourself and our life and the ideas about ourself and our worth and our value in order to transcend into, I suppose you could say, into a set of values that is more aligned with you actually being more authentic to yourself, okay? See, if Taurus is a very traditional sign, which it is, then tradition actually takes us very close to the world of Saturn, which is the consensus reality. So it's kind of like saying that, what has been imprinted in us from birth relative to the family we were born into, the things that influenced our life when we were a child, family, environment, school, whatever it was. And what fed back to us the notion of how valuable we are. So many people will experience being born into situations where their sense of worth and value comes from what the parents fed into them, basically. and what the environment reflects back to them as well, which is predominantly dominated by the consensus reality. And we're being asked here to actually step outside of our conditioned sort of values and thinking of ourselves and find a more authentic sense of self-worth. This is Venus Uranus, okay? The other point to Venus Uranus can be the beginning of exciting new relationships, exciting new love affairs, things like that, exciting new creative projects as well. And it can also bring up matters of disruption in current relationships because one partner might be experiencing the Venus Uranus energy in the context of needing more freedom, just feeling like this relationship's great. I love you, whatever, but I just need a bit more time to myself. I need a bit more freedom, right? It brings up that very strong desire to need more freedom in the setup of your current relationship. Now, the other thing to note is that when we had the new moon in Aries 2 weeks ago, which is ruled by Mars, Mars was in the sign of Gemini, okay, at that time. And so now we see that transiting Mars is in Cancer, okay, so there's Mars over there. So it only just ingressed into Cancer, okay, just a day or so ago. So it's a very new energy that we're stepping into relative to Mars. Now, this is important for this full moon because the full moon is in Scorpio, which is a water sign. It's ruled by Mars, it's ruled by Pluto. So one of its rulers, which is Mars, is in a water sign as well. So we have the water element quite emphasized. The other thing that speaks to this Mars being very important in this full moon chart is that Mars being in Cancer is the moon's sign. Okay, so Mars is actually trine the full moon, which is a great support, right? And so the sun, which is actually then forming a sextile to Mars, that's a very supportive aspect as well. In other words, Mars is actually trying to help, okay, this full moon by its relationship to the sun and the moon. And there are really obvious points here that all have to do with security, emotional security, attachment, okay, and then purging and letting go and transforming, which is the Scorpio moon. Now, both Taurus and Cancer have to do with security. Taurus is about the physical, material world of security. It's about how do I survive in this world and feel safe in what I'm able to produce and create for myself. And the Cancer archetype is very much about Mars in Cancer takes us through a journey of working out within ourselves that the safety and security that we are seeking from out there, from the world out there, it's like the ideas of how can I feel safe within myself by what I create in the world out there. It's the Mars in Cancer is looking for validation from the world out there so that it can feel safe with the actions that it wishes to engage in, right? And so from an evolutionary level, Mars in Cancer is learning, it's helping us understand a lot of lessons around our own inner, very deep inner emotional sense of security. We have to feel and establish and integrate a level of safety and security within that is not codependent or dependent on the world out there in terms of what we create for ourselves relative to finance, career, and so forth. Because again, I've said this numerous times and I will always say it, regardless of whatever is out there outside of ourselves, that can change at any given moment because of the impermanence of life, right? And circumstances. So nothing is permanent. It doesn't matter how in control we think we are or we want to be, or how much money we have, or how certain we are in a particular career path. There's no guarantee in anything, right? the only guarantee is that everything is impermanent and life is simply about change and movement and becoming conscious and learning how to release and transform and become less and less attached to things. Krishnamurti, who was a looked identified as a guru, and he really did not like to be seen in that light at all. He was a very wise, conscious, spiritual man. This is I think he was born around the I think it was around the 40s or something like that. Anyway, he dressed in the most immaculate way. I think he was Taurus from memory. I think that's right. And so he had this what appeared to be quite a lavish sort of um, connection to the material world. He was gifted a lot of things as well, but he never had an attachment to them, to any of the things that he had in his life. And he spoke about this a lot in the public talks that he gave, because there were literally people from all around the world. They literally saw him as a messiah, and he just refused to take that sort of role, that label, and that responsibility, if you like, of the world and people following him. And that's how wise he was, and that's how authentic he was, actually. And he said one day in one of his talks, if somebody gave me uh, one of those really expensive cars, like a Bentley, right? I think Bentleys are worth, I don't know, $500,000, quite easily. Someone gave me a Bentley or a Rolls Royce, whatever, tomorrow. I would absolutely love it. I would absolutely appreciate it. I will use it. And if the following day that person came back and took that car away from me, I would give it back with not even a second thought, because I don't form attachments to things. It was said in I'm paraphrasing, okay, but that's the point, being that he teaches us very valuable lessons around this issue of attachment and self-worth, because self-worth in the material world and in the consensus reality, the Saturn world, for most people comes from what they own. It's, if I own this and if I own that, then I'm worthy. I'm worthy of being looked up to. I'm worthy of being admired and respected. And so if I don't have all these material things to show who I am, then I don't feel worthy to be deserving of any attention or love or admiration or respect, right? It's those kinds of um, internal dialogues that many people are not even aware that they have. Now, this is all Taurus season. This is all Taurus energy. So these are the sorts of things that we can examine in our own life. Now, I know a couple of people in my personal life at the moment that are really being hit very hard by these kinds of issues, and you can see it in their charts, but it's coming up so intensely at the moment because we are in this Taurus season. So Venus conjunct Uranus, it really does give us that opportunity to free ourselves up of holding on to and being attached to a system of values that actually isn't really integral and authentic to what our soul is really about, right? Um, Mars in Cancer, as I said, it's the lessons of learning to build your own inner emotional security, so you are not seeking it from outside of yourself, from the world at large, or people in your life, or your work, or your money, or your whatever it is. Remember, Mars in Cancer has to integrate its polarity, which is Capricorn. So it's learning how to be emotionally mature, emotionally integrated, so that it is emotionally sustained within itself. And these are all really important issues with this full moon, because the Scorpio full moon is saying, let's dive really deeply into where you are at the moment in your personal journey of evolution. And if we just very simply keep it to looking at where the new moon began in Aries 2 weeks ago, there might have been something really new that started for you, right? That you consciously chose to begin, or something just kind of emerged quite organically and naturally for you. Well, now with the moon in Scorpio, you're able to go into a much deeper analysis or view of what it is that you've been working on the last couple of weeks. What is the project that you began? What is that new journey that you might have started? Because the initiation to that, which is Aries initiation, the initial spark, which is the spark of life, fire, light, is brings up that sense of enthusiasm and excitement, but you have absolutely no idea where it's going to go. And so here with the full moon in Scorpio, we have an opportunity to dive deep and to zoom in to your current circumstances, and what about your current circumstances might need more of a deeper examination and analysis. And Uranus is also opposite this full moon. So again, we have Uranus conjunct Venus, Uranus conjunct the sun, and Uranus opposite the moon. So Uranus is screaming through this full moon, as it were. It has a very strong presence. And the presence of Uranus is either going to be chaos, disruption, cataclysmic events, and it'll be those things because we are not ready to let go of certain things, or we are actually, I don't know if not ready is correct. Well, that might be for some people, but more than anything, it's going to be resistance, because Taurus brings up the most resistance to anything. It holds on. It's the rock of Gibraltar. Taurus will hang on and hang on and hang on and hang on. And as I said before, sometimes it's a great thing, because sometimes we need to just stand with things and stay with things, for a certain amount of time, as opposed to just fleeting around and jumping from here to there and everywhere, which is the mutable energy, right? But sometimes we also need to get to that level, and we need to kind of say to ourselves, okay, well, I've really outgrown this particular way of thinking. I've really outgrown these sorts of values that I held in high regard. They don't actually really make me feel true and authentic within myself and empower me. They weigh heavy on my heart, because they are values that correspond to an inner dialogue of self-worth that actually doesn't make me feel good about myself, that doesn't make me feel confident. That's one thing. Or it could be that these values and these matters of self-worth that I hang on to all connect to having a sense of material security. And so if that material security is shaken, disrupted, taken away, then I'm left with what? And so this is what Uranus presents us with, the gift of actually letting go, detaching, really detaching. The Scorpio moon, Scorpio full moon, ultimately is about purging and transforming deeply, deeply inside us, right? Whatever we are ready to transform and purge at this time. It has a dark side to it as well, of course, because Scorpio has a dark side, right? Period. And so it's not necessarily very comfortable for a lot of people, because it's shining the spotlight into those darker shades of ourself, those perhaps shadow components of ourself that are not necessarily comfortable to really look at and to be really honest about. And that's okay, because everybody goes through that. Nobody is just white light and has no shadow material. Or if you did, you wouldn't be here. There'd be no reason or purpose for you to be here. So it's just an important thing to remember, right? Because this all comes back to self-worth. What is our true value and our true worth? What's going to make me feel most authentic when I step into what feels authentic and right for me? Not what I've been told, not what's been imprinted, not what I've just attached myself to, in the physical, but what makes me feel truly authentic within myself, as with my own character, with my own personality, with my own heart, my own soul, with what I'm trying to create in my own life, right? These are the things that are coming through. Now, the other interesting thing, of course, is that Saturn is forming a square to this full moon, okay? So that's not an easy energy, okay? So I think it's very it's really, really interesting, because here we have Uranus and Saturn involved in this full moon. And Saturn, of course, is squaring Venus as well. So we're dealing with the two cosmic energies, Uranus and Saturn, which are in the heavens, squaring each other throughout this year. The first square was in February, the next one's coming up in June, and the last one's in December. And I made an error in those dates, so thank you, Christine, who pointed that out, if you're watching this video. And Saturn is always about consensus reality. It's what we are conditioned to believe or hold on to or be attached to. And Uranus is what sets you free. It literally sets you free, right? In order to become free, you have to be able to let go of the conditioned sort of structures and systems that are integrated into your psychic self, into your beingness, into your mind, into how you view yourself in this life. And one thing that I want to point to that's not necessarily a part of this full moon, but it is an important point, and someone very close to me is going through this quite strongly at the moment, and it has got to do with Pluto. And it is important because Pluto is stationary direct, okay, at the time of the full moon. Stationary retrograde, rather. Sorry, my apologies. So in other words, Pluto is about to go retrograde, okay? And Pluto is the other ruler to this full moon. So the full moon is in a sign that takes us very deeply into our soul self, our soul work. It also takes us into the greatest sort of fears and resistances we have to actually facing the necessary change that we need to face, or to create the necessary change that we need to create in order to evolve and move forward. And that's a whole spectrum of things, because it's like it can be so many different things depending on who you are. But the matters that largely are highlighted through this full moon are matters of security and self-worth, emotional security and self-worth based on the tangible and material world, and your level and sense of control over that and attachment to that as well. Uranus is going to create some shock waves through this full moon. There's going to have to be some little shock that kind of, it's like it sets this electrical impulse, right? And it just sort of shocks you into reality, as it were, or a new reality, really, right? So it's not dealing with easy energies. It's very intense. It can be very confronting. It can be very demanding, but boy, can it be powerful? Absolutely. It can be incredibly powerful for your own growth, transformation, and evolution at the moment. Now, Pluto is about to go retrograde. So Pluto retrograde always operates outside of the consensus reality. Pluto being, first of all, the soul, and being a symbol of power and a symbol of what's hidden. And Pluto goes retrograde. The energy is now turning directions, right? It's turning back within. So the transformative journey that Pluto is going to continue to take us through as he moves retrograde is, again, it's asking us to work from a deeper level of our soul that is not dictated to by the consensus reality. It's learning how to work outside of the consensus reality, which means what? It means learning how to be responsible for yourself and not needing anything out there to dictate that to you, really. the healthiest level of Saturn is when it's functioning really well and really healthy in your life. It literally means that you have total responsibility over yourself and your life, which basically means you are pretty conscious, because then there's no projecting, blaming, expectations, etc. So Saturn in Aquarius squaring this full moon has a very strong voice as well, and it's going to bring up some tension points around the Sun in Taurus, self-worth, security, Moon in Scorpio, deep emotional purging, letting go of whatever is ready to be released from you at the moment, and the tension between the two. Saturn is, it's like it's forming a wedge between the sun and the moon, and so it's putting a lot of dynamic energy. Not, I mean, a full moon is so dynamic anyway, but add Saturn into the picture, squaring those two, it's adding a tension there to both the sun and the moon from the point of view of Saturn's realm, Saturn's energy, Saturn's voice, which again is what it's giving you tips and ideas about how are you viewing your reality at the moment. What is the structure of your reality? How is it helping you at the moment? And how is it hindering you or holding you back, again, because of the level of values or narrative you have about your own worth? An example of that, just a simple example, there's millions, but one simple example would be if you are a person who, let's just say that you're wanting to start some online business for yourself, right? And let's just say that you're an upcoming astrologer, and there's many people like this. So I know this for a fact. They've been reading books for 20 years, and there's a part of them that so badly wants to come out and be public with it, right, and start working with people, but they lack the confidence, right, and they lack the healthy the healthy level of self-worth to feel worthy enough to say, hey, you know what? I've got some knowledge here. I've got some skills, and I can actually work with people, and I am worth actually being paid for my time, my wisdom, and my skills, and so forth. This is something that a lot of astrologers actually go through. I went through it myself 25 years ago, right? So I've been there. I understand what that feels like. That's just one example. There's lots of examples that we could use with this, but hopefully the message has come through. What else do we have here? I'm going to do a separate video for Pluto going retrograde, by the way, because that deserves a video unto itself, without question. I've got to do a Jupiter in Pisces video, and I would like to do a Mars in Cancer video if I can, so we'll see how we go. Just seeing what other aspects are here. Lilith is also in the picture too, by the way, because she's conjunct Mercury, conjunct Venus, and conjunct Uranus, and widely conjunct the Sun as well, and opposite the full moon. So Lilith has a very strong presence here as well, and Lilith is a very interesting goddess, and she represents the wild feminine, and so in Taurus here, she's also bringing up issues of self-worth and things like that. And so the Lilith energy in this full moon picture is probably going to bring up some issues for people around, well, the way that I try to establish my own sense of self-worth and what I feel about myself on that level, and what I try to create on those levels is what I'm practically implementing, right, in order to survive for myself, right, in my world. Okay, how it will likely manifest for certain people will be that the way in which you do those things will not be accepted, okay, by certain people around you. That could be your local community, that could be your family, your partner, whatever, whoever it may be. Because remember, whatever sign Lilith is in, she has that level to her that will be expressed through that archetype, and there's two sides. There's the healthy side of Lilith through whatever archetype she's in, and then there's the shadow side as well. So some of these issues might come up, and the challenge with Lilith is always to be to step into your own sense of self-empowerment, without needing the validation and acceptance of what you are doing from your external environment. Many people need that external validation to feel good about themselves. And in this day and age, with the technology of the internet and the level of narcissism that actually exists is pretty phenomenal. Which is all based on, you know, how many likes did I get? How many people commented on this? You know, how many people have subscribed to my channel? How many people have done this? And, you know, and so that feeds a false sense of security, but really it means nothing. The thing that does mean something is when you connect with somebody and when you touch somebody from a heart and a soul level, in whatever platform or capacity that is, that's what actually means something. That's what's truly rewarding, because you might get 1,000 people comment on your picture today, and then tomorrow you get 0. And so you go on this high, and then you know, the following day you drop down to 0, and it's like, well, what the hell happened? You know, what have I? So you start questioning yourself and all this crap. This is what's happening in the world of people having their business online and so forth. Okay, so that's just one example. And again, what am I pointing to with that? I'm just pointing to Mars in Cancer. Develop your own inner security emotionally. Mature. We have to be mature. You know, we have to mature emotionally. We can still be a kid at heart and be very playful and all of that. I'm not talking about removing those things. I'll always be a kid at heart. I'm an Aries. I'm wearing an Aries t-shirt today. But emotional maturity and evolving emotionally is crucial. It's crucial to becoming conscious, and it's very empowering, extremely empowering. So those are some of the main themes that I can say. And so Lilith, when, by the way, just to finish up on Lilith, when she's acting in a way that's really healthy inside the individual through Taurus, for instance, then she can create and establish, you know, herself in the practical sense of Taurus, and create the comforts and security and whatever else it is through the means that she chooses, without feeling threatened or insecure about it by being judged or criticized or ridiculed or whatever. That's the healthy level of Venus through any archetype. It's the ability to express that archetype in the most healthiest way without feeling that being judged or not validated and so forth, as that being an issue, you know, as that getting in the way of what you need to do with Lilith in that archetype, because that's what we have to do when Lilith is in whatever sign she's in. The characteristics of that sign describe what Lilith is trying to achieve, what she's struggling with as well, right? So Uranus is prominent, Saturn is prominent. Saturn is going to highlight what structures are no longer working, that, you know, may have been working up until this point, but they cannot work moving forward, because Saturn's in Aquarius as well, which is Uranus's sign. And Uranus is very prominent in this full moon chart. So it's really about freedom, authenticity, liberation, breaking away from old values and narratives of self-worth that don't really do you justice and actually keep your true potential very limited, which is very sad, because I know a lot of people actually whose potential is freaking out there, you know, just really high, at a really integral sort of level, you know, just in whether it's intelligence or wisdom or skills or whatever it is, but they have this enormous potential. And because of these inner internal narratives that go on around self-worth, they are not able to even touch their potential. It's there, but there's not enough belief in the self that they deserve to actually actualize their potential. And it's very sad, very sad. I speak about this because I know it's going to reach somebody. I just absolutely know it. And if it does reach you and you are comfortable enough to be open, I would love to hear from you. And I would love to, you know, you can express in the comments here, or you can send me a personal email if you like. I'm happy to, you know, to hear from you, because it's a very important matter that I think a lot of people face, you know, so it's important. Right, okay, I think I'm going to finish up here. Yeah, I will finish up here. I think that's enough to consider, yeah? There's a fair bit going on there. So, if you feel this full moon takes you into a space that's quite, yeah, quite deep and quite dark and quite intense and quite confronting and quite uncomfortable, that's okay. That's the full moon in Scorpio. But I guess the magic in that would be to be able to accept something that does become more obvious or more clear, where you perhaps have a resistance or a fear of changing. If you can see that, even just by seeing it, that's a step forward, right, into possibly creating some change around that. Because denial, or being blindsided or ignorant or unaware and very unconscious, is the combination of what gets in the way of people evolving and facing the very things that they need to face, to change, to grow, to grow, to evolve. So, happy full moon in Scorpio. I hope that you work with this in a way that serves you. Yeah. In the best possible way that serves you. And by the way, in esoteric astrology, Scorpio remains to be ruled by Mars and Pluto. So in other words, it remains as the same rulership in exoteric astrology. You know, I've talked about esoteric astrology many times, and there are different rulerships in esoteric astrology for a lot of the signs. The Scorpio happens to be one of the ones, and I think it's Scorpio and Leo. Scorpio, Leo, I can't remember if there's another one right now, but certainly Scorpio and Leo maintain the same rulership. So the sun is ruled by Leo, and Scorpio is ruled by Mars and Pluto, which is about at the physical personality external level, it can be extreme conflict with other people, other personalities, circumstances in your life, because it's trying to push through with what it wants to do, how it wants to act, what it wants to create, what it wants to challenge, right? And from the more esoteric and spiritual level, it's the intense initiation for the purposes of the soul evolving, from the point of view of bringing the soul and personality together, the alignment. That's what esoteric astrology teaches us. How do we align the soul and the personality? So yeah, interesting that Pluto and Mars remain the same for the rulership of Scorpio. Okay, I'll see you guys very soon. Much love. Happy full moon in Scorpio, and thanks for tuning in. If you stayed all the way through, thank you. If you're new to my channel, thanks for watching, and subscribe if you haven't, or if you want to, or if you don't want to. It's all good. See you soon. Much love. Bye.